For 7 years, Carmen Delgado cleaned weapons at Pearl Harbor Naval Weapons Facility, invisible to everyone around her. What they didn't know was that she was once Lieutenant Commander Sofia "Ghost" Blackwater, one of the Navy's most classified intelligence operatives. Until the day Commander Sterling decided to humiliate her in front of cameras, and an Admiral recognized her from top-secret files that were supposed to have been destroyed forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Pacific dawn painted the Hawaiian sky in brilliant orange and pink as Carmen Delgado wheeled her maintenance cart through the secured weapons bay of the USS Defiance. At 38, she had mastered the art of being completely unremarkable. Eyes down, movements efficient but unremarkable, never lingering too long near any particular weapon system. For 7 years, she had been nothing more than background noise, the quiet Latina woman who cleaned the rifles, maintained the sidearms, and polished the naval weaponry that kept America's fleet operational. "Morning, Carmen," called Master Chief Petty Officer Marcus Jefferson, one of the few personnel who treated her like an actual human being. He was inspecting a shipment of M4 carbines, the same weapons that made her heart race with memories she couldn't afford to acknowledge. "How's the family?" "Good morning, Chief," she replied softly, her voice barely carrying over the distant hum of the ship's engines. "My sister's doing well, thanks for asking." Jefferson was different from the others, respectful, professional, with the kind of bearing that came from decades of honorable service. He reminded her of the good people she used to work alongside, back when she wore a different uniform and carried clearance levels that most officers could only dream of. Carmen had arrived at Pearl Harbor 7 years ago with forged credentials and a desperate need to disappear completely. The personnel office had barely glanced at her application. A middle-aged woman seeking weapons maintenance work was exactly the kind of unremarkable hire that raised no questions. Perfect camouflage for someone who needed to vanish from the radar of very dangerous people. As she methodically cleaned each weapon, Carmen listened to the conversations flowing around her, sailors discussing deployment schedules, officers debating tactical modifications, technicians comparing ammunition specifications. She absorbed every detail, every piece of technical information. Old habits died hard, and intelligence gathering had been burned into her DNA during years of specialized training. The weapons bay housed everything from standard-issue M9 pistols to advanced sniper systems worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Carmen knew the specifications of every single piece by heart, not from reading manuals, but from muscle memory developed during her previous life. She had once been responsible for weapon systems that made these look like toys, back when her name was Lieutenant Commander Sofia "Ghost" Blackwater, one of the Navy's most elite intelligence operatives. That was before the conspiracy. Before the classified documents that proved high-ranking officials were selling military secrets to foreign adversaries. Before her entire existence was systematically erased by corrupt politicians who needed a convenient scapegoat to disappear forever. "Make sure that section gets extra attention," Commander Vincent Sterling's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. He stood near the advanced weapons rack, pointing at an area she had already cleaned twice. "We have inspection coming up this week." Sterling embodied everything wrong with military nepotism. Son of a powerful congressman, Ivy League graduate who had never seen real combat, elevated by family connections and political influence rather than merit. At 42, he commanded respect he hadn't earned and wielded authority like a weapon against anyone he considered beneath him. "Yes, sir," Carmen replied, keeping her eyes down. She had learned through bitter experience that making direct eye contact with Sterling only invited trouble. "And be extra careful around the classified systems," Sterling continued, his voice dripping with condescension. "Some of these weapons are worth more than you'll make in 10 lifetimes. We can't have careless hands damaging military property." Several junior officers nearby snickered at his comment. Carmen's grip tightened on her cleaning cloth, but she remained silent. Sterling had no idea he was speaking to someone who had once handled weapons and intelligence systems so classified that their very existence was compartmentalized above his clearance level. Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, Sterling's ever-present protege and fellow beneficiary of family connections, approached with his smartphone already recording. "Commander, want to see the video I took of the new recruits failing their weapons training?" Always, Sterling grinned with the cruel satisfaction of someone who had never experienced real hardship. I love watching people discover their limitations. Carmen continued her work, but her trained ears caught every word. She had noticed Brooks's obsession with filming everything, always hunting for content that would embarrass others. He documented every failure, every moment of humiliation, with the enthusiasm of someone who confused cruelty with entertainment. As the morning progressed, Carmen observed the toxic culture that had taken root under Sterling's command. He and his inner circle mocked junior sailors, berated experienced petty officers for minor infractions, and treated support staff like invisible servants. The entire command structure had become a reflection of Sterling's character, arrogant, entitled, and fundamentally corrupted. But Carmen also noticed something else. The veteran chiefs, the experienced warrant officers, the seasoned sailors who remembered when the Navy valued competence over connections. They watched Sterling with barely concealed disgust. They recognized incompetence wrapped in privilege, and their professional pride was wounded by serving under such leadership. During her lunch break, Master Chief Jefferson approached with his usual direct manner. "Carmen, you've been here longer than most of the officers. Ever think about doing something different?" The question caught her off guard. "This job suits me fine, Chief. It's just, you seem overqualified for weapons maintenance. The way you handle the equipment, the way you listen when people discuss technical specifications, reminds me of someone I used to know, an intelligence specialist." Carmen felt ice form in her veins. "I wouldn't know anything about that, Chief." Jefferson studied her face with the practiced eye of someone who had spent decades reading people. "Of course not. Just saying, sometimes the best people end up hiding in plain sight for reasons that make sense to them." As the afternoon progressed, Carmen finished her assigned sections and prepared to secure her equipment, but Sterling's voice stopped her at the weapons bay entrance. "Delgado, tomorrow morning, 0700 sharp, we're having a special demonstration for some visiting officials. Make sure every weapon in this bay is absolutely spotless." "Yes, sir." Sterling's smile carried an edge that made her instincts flare with warning. "And, Delgado, wear something presentable. Can't have you embarrassing us in front of important people." The officers laughed, but Carmen detected something else in Sterling's tone, a hint of malicious planning that suggested tomorrow would be different, special, dangerous. That night, Carmen sat in her small off-base apartment, staring at a photograph hidden behind a false panel in her closet. It showed a younger version of herself in dress blues, receiving the Navy Cross from an admiral whose name was still classified. Lieutenant Commander Sofia Ghost Blackwater. Decorated intelligence operative, specialist in high-risk infiltration, one of the first Latinas to break barriers in naval special operations. The woman in the photograph looked confident, unbreakable, proud to serve her country at the highest levels. The woman staring back from the bathroom mirror looked tired, worn down by 7 years of deliberate invisibility and the constant fear of discovery. But beneath the surface, Sofia Blackwater was still there, waiting, watching, gathering intelligence on the very corruption that had destroyed her career and forced her into hiding. Carmen had spent 7 years learning Sterling's routines, his weaknesses, his associations. She knew about his family's political connections, his mediocre service record, and his habit of taking credit for subordinates' work. She had been building a file, not for revenge, but for survival, and for the day when justice might finally be possible. Tomorrow, Sterling had promised a demonstration. He had no idea that he was about to awaken something that had been dormant for 7 years. The question wasn't whether Carmen Delgado could continue hiding. The question was whether Sofia Ghost Blackwater was ready to emerge from the shadows where she had been forced to live and reclaim everything that had been stolen from her. The next morning arrived with an unusual energy crackling through the USS Defiance. Carmen felt it immediately as she wheeled her cart toward the weapons bay. Too many officers present for a routine day. Too much excitement buzzing through conversations. Too many smartphones being positioned for optimal recording angles. Commander Sterling stood at the center of it all like a spider in his web, briefing a group of junior officers with the kind of theatrical enthusiasm that made Carmen's trained instincts scream warnings. This wasn't preparation for a normal inspection. This was preparation for a show. Gentlemen, Sterling announced to his assembled audience, his voice carrying the artificial authority of someone who had never earned real respect. Today we're going to conduct what I call an educational reality check. Lieutenant Brooks was already setting up his camera equipment with unusual care, checking lighting and angles like he was preparing for a professional broadcast. Several other junior officers had their phones ready, their expressions ranging from anticipation to uncomfortable uncertainty. You see, Sterling continued, warming to his theme, there's been a lot of talk lately about diversity in military operations, about how anyone can handle advanced weapon systems if given proper training. His tone made it crystal clear what he thought of such progressive concepts. Carmen continued her cleaning routine, but every sense was hyper-alert. The weapons bay's acoustics meant she could monitor conversations from across the entire space. She automatically cataloged personnel positions, exit routes, the location of emergency protocols, and the placement of witnesses. Her intelligence training was taking over despite her efforts to remain invisible. Master Chief Jefferson approached the group with obvious concern. Sir, what exactly are we planning here? I wasn't briefed on any special demonstration. Don't worry, Chief. Sterling's smile carried predatory satisfaction. This will be entirely educational. Our cleaning lady here is going to show us what it takes to operate military-grade weapons systems. The implications hit Jefferson like a physical blow. Commander, I really don't think this is appropriate protocol. Are you questioning my authority, Chief? Sterling's voice carried a warning that made Jefferson reluctantly step back, though his expression showed he understood exactly what kind of cruelty was being planned. Carmen's mind raced through tactical assessments. Sterling wasn't just planning humiliation, he was planning to film it, broadcast it, turn her into viral entertainment. The setup was designed to be both personally devastating and a broader statement about knowing your place in the military hierarchy. But Sterling had made a critical miscalculation. He assumed Carmen Delgado was just a cleaning lady. Chief Jefferson, Carmen said quietly as she worked near his position, how many people know about this demonstration? Jefferson's weathered face showed surprise at her directness. Word spreading through the ship. Why? Just curious. But Carmen was thinking far beyond curiosity. She was calculating variables, assessing risks, and preparing for possibilities that Sterling couldn't even imagine. The weapons bay had become a stage, with Sterling as the director of his own cruel theater. Brooks was live-streaming preparation footage, already attracting viewers who had no idea they were about to witness something that would change naval history. This is going to break the internet, Brooks whispered to another officer, his camera capturing Sterling's briefing. Cleaning lady thinks she can handle military weapons. The comments are going to be epic. But several of the veteran personnel looked deeply uncomfortable. Petty Officer Rodriguez, a decorated combat veteran, shook his head in disgust. This isn't right, he muttered to his colleague. We're supposed to be better than this. Sterling had spent his entire career surrounded by enablers and political protection, never facing real consequences for his actions. His father's congressional connections had shielded him from accountability, while his privileged background had insulated him from understanding real hardship or genuine merit. Carmen observed it all with the analytical precision of someone trained to assess threats and opportunities. Sterling's arrogance was his weakness. His need for public validation would become his downfall. His assumption that she was powerless would prove to be his greatest mistake. Attention, everyone, Sterling called out, his voice carrying across the weapons bay. Our star performer should be arriving shortly. I want everyone to witness this educational moment about the difference between fantasy and reality. The crowd had grown to nearly 40 personnel. Word was spreading through the ship that Commander Sterling was conducting some kind of demonstration in the weapons bay. Some came out of curiosity, others from concern, and a few because they sensed something significant was about to happen.
Carmen continued cleaning, but her movements had gained a subtle precision that Jefferson noticed. Her posture was straighter, more military. Her awareness of surroundings had shifted from passive observation to active assessment. Something fundamental was changing in her demeanor.
Carmen, Jefferson said quietly, approaching her workstation, whatever Sterling's planning, you don't have to participate. I can find ways to— Chief, Carmen interrupted, meeting his eyes directly for the first time in 7 years. Sometimes, the best way to handle a bully is to give them exactly what they're asking for. Jefferson felt something cold run down his spine. The woman looking back at him wasn't the quiet cleaning lady he thought he knew. This was someone else entirely, someone with steel in her voice and calculation in her eyes. "Ma'am," he said automatically, then caught himself. I mean, Carmen? It's okay, Chief. You'll understand soon enough." Sterling was consulting his watch with theatrical impatience. "Where is she? We have an audience waiting." He gestured toward the growing crowd of personnel, many of whom were recording with their phones. Brooks's live stream had attracted over 1,000 viewers, with comments pouring in from military personnel around the world. Most assumed they were about to witness some kind of training exercise or equipment demonstration. None suspected they were about to see justice served in the most spectacular way possible. "There she is," Sterling announced loudly as Carmen approached the center of the weapons bay. "Our volunteer for today's demonstration of military readiness and capability." Carmen stood before the assembled crowd, her cleaning cart beside her, wearing the same maintenance uniform she had worn for 7 years. But something in her bearing made several veteran personnel pause and take notice. Sterling's smile was cold and calculated. "Today, we are going to test the theory that anyone can operate advanced weapon systems. Our cleaning lady here is going to show us her expertise with military-grade equipment." The cruelty was breathtaking. Sterling intended to film a middle-aged Latina maintenance worker failing at something obviously beyond her capabilities, then broadcast her humiliation as entertainment and political commentary. Carmen looked around the weapons bay, taking inventory of every system, every weapon, every piece of equipment that Sterling might ask her to demonstrate. M4 carbines, M9 pistols, sniper systems, crew-served weapons, even some classified systems that most of the watching personnel had never been trained on. "Any particular weapon system you'd like me to demonstrate, Commander?" she asked quietly. Sterling's eyes lit up with malicious anticipation. He pointed to the most advanced sniper system in the bay, a weapon worth more than most people's houses, requiring months of specialized training to operate effectively. "Let's start with something simple," he said with mock consideration. "Show us your expertise with the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Should be easy for someone with your obvious qualifications." The crowd murmured with discomfort. Even Sterling's supporters recognized that he was asking a middle-aged civilian to handle one of the most sophisticated weapons in the naval arsenal. But Carmen simply nodded and walked toward the weapon system with a confident stride that made Master Chief Jefferson's blood run cold. He suddenly realized that he had no idea who Carmen Delgado really was. Carmen approached the M110 semi-automatic sniper system with movements that made several experienced weapons specialists in the crowd exchange concerned glances. Her stride wasn't the hesitant shuffle of someone overwhelmed by sophisticated equipment. It was the confident approach of someone who knew exactly what she was dealing with. "Take your time," Sterling called out mockingly, ensuring his voice carried to Brooks's livestream audience, which had grown to over 5,000 viewers. "No rush to embarrass yourself in front of the entire Navy." But as Carmen reached the weapon system, something extraordinary happened. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, automatically checking the weapons condition, verifying safety protocols, and assessing the system's status. These weren't the fumbling movements of an amateur. They were the precise actions of someone with extensive training. Master Chief Jefferson felt his stomach drop as recognition dawned.
The way she handled the weapon, the automatic safety checks, the professional assessment of the equipment's condition, he had seen this level of expertise before, but only among the Navy's most elite specialists. "Holy shit," whispered Petty Officer Rodriguez to his colleague. "Look at how she's handling that system. That's not beginner's luck." Sterling was too focused on his humiliation plan to notice the growing murmur of concern from the experienced personnel. "Everyone getting good footage? I want every second of this documented for training purposes." Brooks's camera captured everything, though he was beginning to sense that something wasn't following the script Sterling had promised. "Commander," he whispered, still filming, "she seems different than expected." "She's faking confidence," Sterling replied dismissively, but his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "Anyone can pretend to know what they're doing for a few minutes." Carmen completed her initial assessment of the M110 SAS and turned to face Sterling directly. For the first time in 7 years, their eyes met without Carmen looking away submissively. What Sterling saw in her gaze should have been a warning, not fear or uncertainty, but the cold calculation of a professional evaluating a target. "Commander," Carmen said, her voice carrying new authority, "before we proceed, I'd like to confirm the parameters of this demonstration. Are you asking me to show basic familiarity with the weapon, or are you requesting a complete operational assessment?" The specificity of her question sent ripples through the watching crowd. How did a cleaning lady know about operational assessments? What? Sterling blinked, caught off guard by the professional terminology. The M110 SAS, 7.62 by 51 millimeters NATO, effective range 800 meters, Leopold Mark IV LR by T M1 scope, 20-round detachable box magazine. Are you asking for basic handling demonstration or full tactical employment? The silence in the weapons bay was deafening. Several officers stared at Carmen with growing amazement, while others pulled out phones to record what was clearly becoming something extraordinary. "Ma'am, how do you know the specifications?" Jefferson stepped forward, his voice tight with recognition. Before Carmen could answer, Sterling's voice cracked with increasing desperation. "She memorized some technical data. Anyone can do internet research." But Carmen was far from finished. She moved to the weapon scope, adjusting the parallax and diopter settings with the fluid motions of someone who had performed these actions thousands of times. Her body position shifted into a perfect prone shooting stance, demonstrating muscle memory that couldn't be faked. "Brooks," Sterling hissed, "make sure you're getting this. When she fails, I want every angle recorded." But Brooks's live stream chat was exploding with comments from military personnel worldwide. Viewers were questioning whether this was some kind of setup, noting the woman's professional demeanor, asking who she really was. Carmen rose from the shooting position and approached a rack of M4 carbines. Without being asked, she began a complete inspection sequence. Functions check, bore inspection, trigger mechanism assessment. Each action performed with textbook precision. "That's not standard cleaning procedure," Jefferson said quietly, his voice filled with growing awe. "That's weapons inspection protocol for special operations personnel." The crowd had grown to over 60 people, with personnel from throughout the ship drawn by word that something unprecedented was happening in the weapons bay. Several senior petty officers who had served in elite units were watching Carmen's movements with professional recognition. "Sir," Petty Officer Rodriguez addressed Sterling directly, "maybe we should reconsider this demonstration. She clearly has training we weren't aware of."
Carmen moved to a display of sidearms, selecting an M9 pistol. Her movements were economical and precise as she performed a complete field strip of the weapon, removing the slide, barrel, recoil spring, and trigger group in seconds, then reassembling everything with the kind of speed that came only from intensive training. The demonstration was so flawless that several watching officers began applauding involuntarily before catching themselves. "Jesus Christ," whispered a young sailor to his friend. I've been trying to get that fast at field stripping for 2 years. She just did it like breathing. Brooks's live stream had reached 10,000 viewers, with military forums beginning to share the feed. Comments were pouring in from around the world, with experienced personnel recognizing the level of expertise they were witnessing. Sterling realized his humiliation plan was backfiring spectacularly, but he was too committed to retreat without losing face completely. "Fine," he said loudly. "So she has some basic weapons familiarity. Let's see how she handles something that requires real expertise." He pointed to a locked cabinet containing classified weapons systems. "Show us your skills with restricted equipment that requires special clearance to even touch." The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Sterling was gambling that Carmen wouldn't have access to classified systems, that this would finally expose her as a fraud. Carmen looked at the classified cabinet, then back at Sterling with an expression that made Jefferson's blood run cold. "Commander, are you certain you want me to demonstrate proficiency with classified weapon systems?" "Absolutely," Sterling replied, convinced he had finally cornered her. "Unless you're admitting you don't have the proper clearance." Carmen walked to the cabinet's electronic lock and, without hesitation, entered a complex access code. The lock disengaged with a soft beep, and she opened the cabinet to reveal advanced weapon systems that most of the watching personnel had never seen before. Sterling's face went white. "That's impossible! How do you know that access code?" Carmen selected a weapon from the cabinet, a system so advanced that its very existence was classified above Sterling's security level. She handled it with the casual familiarity of someone who had trained extensively with similar equipment. "Commander Sterling," Carmen said, her voice now carrying unmistakable authority, "I think it's time we had a conversation about exactly who you've been ordering around for the past 7 years." The transformation was complete. The quiet cleaning lady was gone. In her place stood someone who clearly possessed training and clearances that Sterling couldn't even comprehend. Brooks's camera captured every moment as the balance of power in the weapons base shifted completely. The woman they had all dismissed as an invisible servant was revealing herself to be something far more dangerous and capable than anyone had imagined. Master Chief Jefferson felt recognition dawning like a thunderbolt. The professional competence, the classified access, the level of weapons expertise. He had seen this combination before, but only among the Navy's most elite intelligence operatives. "My God, who are you really?" Carmen looked around the assembled crowd, her eyes finally settling on Sterling's terrified face. "That," she said quietly, "is an excellent question. And I think it's time everyone learned the answer." The weapons bay fell into complete silence except for the hum of the ship's ventilation system and the soft electronic beeping of Brooks's recording equipment. Carmen stood at the center of it all, holding a classified weapon system with the casual confidence of someone who belonged there, while 60 naval personnel stared in growing amazement. Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. His entire worldview was crumbling in real time, broadcast to thousands of viewers who were witnessing something that would be talked about in military circles for decades. "This is impossible," Sterling finally managed to whisper. You're just the cleaning lady." Carmen's smile held no warmth. "Commander Sterling, in 7 years of working under your command, you never once bothered to ask about my background. You never wondered why a weapons maintenance worker might know more about military systems than most of your officers. You assumed that because I cleaned your equipment, I was beneath your notice." She moved through the weapons bay with purposeful strides, her hands automatically checking various systems with the kind of muscle memory that takes years to develop. Each movement demonstrated expertise that couldn't be faked or learned from internet research. "Jesus," breathed Petty Officer Rodriguez. "Look at how she moves. That's not maintenance training, that's operator-level expertise." Master Chief Jefferson stepped forward, his voice tight with recognition and growing respect. Ma'am, I need to ask directly, what's your actual background? Carmen paused at a communications terminal, her fingers hovering over controls that should have been familiar only to intelligence specialists. Chief, what would you say if I told you that Lieutenant Commander Sofia Blackwater didn't die in that helicopter crash 7 years ago? The name hit the crowd like a physical blow. Several veteran personnel went pale, while others exchanged shocked glances. Sophia Ghost Blackwater was a legend in naval intelligence circles, one of the most decorated covert operatives in Navy history. That's impossible, Sterling repeated, but his voice cracked with desperate denial. Sophia Blackwater was killed in action. There was a memorial service. There was a cover-up, Carmen replied calmly, orchestrated by your uncle, Congressman Sterling, and his associates who needed Lieutenant Commander Sofia Blackwater to disappear before she could expose their conspiracy. Brooks's live stream exploded with activity. The chat was moving too fast to read as viewers shared stories about Sofia Blackwater's legendary operations. Comments poured in from military personnel worldwide, many recognizing the name and understanding the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Tell me it's not her, Jefferson said through a mixture of awe and disbelief. Blackwater! You faked your own death and you've been hiding as a maintenance worker? This is all an elaborate scam. Sterling mustered the courage to speak, his face as white as a used paper towel. Jefferson, Defense Secretary Martin, come online, the Berkey over the speaker said. We have a situation. The Defense Secretary's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was grim. An overlay in international set times shifted ever so slightly as a different video feed appeared, bringing to the scene a technical face that would instantly be recognized as the indestructible corporation that owned the protected ship. Elvis, Carmen again snapped, is the contractor for these weapon systems. He is watching right now and complaining. I was managing a project to improve the maintenance logistics system when I accidentally stumbled on the arms dealing business. John Martin, you ordered the assassination attempt that was supposed to kill me, to bury your own crimes. With Defense Secretary Martin's face still prominently displayed on the main screen, Chief Jefferson assumed the official stance of attention. He then forwarded Carmen's statement, which had been recorded by Brooks, along with a quick summary of the explosive situation to his commanding staff.
The implications sent shockwaves through the watching personnel. If Carmen was telling the truth, they were witnessing the exposure of a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government and military leadership. She's insane, Sterling announced desperately to the crowd. This woman is having some kind of psychotic break. Security should remove her immediately. But the veteran personnel weren't buying Sterling's denial. They had seen enough combat and covert operations to recognize the real thing when they saw it. Carmen's expertise, her knowledge of classified systems, her professional bearing, it all pointed to someone with the highest levels of training and clearance. Carmen approached a secure terminal and, without hesitation, entered a complex authorization sequence. The screen flickered to life, displaying classified databases that should have been accessible only to personnel with the highest security clearances. That access code was retired 7 years ago, Jefferson said in amazement. Only someone who was active in intelligence operations during that period would know it. Very good, Chief, Carmen replied, pulling up files that made several officers gasp. And now you're going to see exactly why I had to disappear. The screen displayed classified documents detailing illegal weapons transactions, congressional bribes, and assassination orders, all bearing the digital signatures of officials whose names made the watching personnel gasp in recognition. Sterling's legs gave out. He slumped against a weapons rack, staring at evidence of his family's crimes displayed on a screen for everyone to see. This can't be real. My uncle is a patriot. He would never... Your uncle is a traitor,
And you've been living off blood money your entire career. Brooks's camera captured Sterling's complete breakdown as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. The live stream audience had grown to over 50,000 viewers, with major news networks beginning to pick up the feed. Carmen turned to address the entire crowd, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. For 7 years, I've lived in hiding, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to expose the truth. I've watched Commander Sterling abuse his authority, humiliate good sailors, and perpetuate the same corrupt culture that nearly got me killed. She gestured toward the classified documents still displayed on the screen. Today was supposed to be my humiliation. Instead, it's going to be the day that justice finally catches up with the Sterling family and their co-conspirators. Jefferson stepped forward, his voice filled with professional respect. "Ma'am, what do you need from us?" Carmen's smile was sharp and determined. "Chief, I need you to contact Admiral Hawthorne immediately. Tell her that Ghost is back from the dead, and she has a story to tell that's going to change everything." The transformation was complete. Carmen Delgado, the invisible cleaning lady, was gone forever. In her place stood Lieutenant Commander Sofia Ghost Blackwater, one of the most dangerous and capable operatives the Navy had ever produced. And she was done hiding.
The secure communication system crackled to life as Master Chief Jefferson established contact with Fleet Headquarters. Priority message for Admiral Hawthorne. This is USS Defiance. We have an extraordinary situation requiring immediate attention. The response came back within minutes, Admiral Hawthorne's voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to crisis management. "Chief Jefferson, this is Admiral Hawthorne. What's the nature of your emergency?" Jefferson looked at Sofia, who nodded permission to proceed. "Ma'am, we have someone here claiming to be Lieutenant Commander Sofia Blackwater. She's demonstrating knowledge and capabilities that, well, Admiral, I think you need to see this for yourself." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Sofia Ghost Blackwater was a name that carried weight at the highest levels of naval command, even 7 years after her supposed death. "Chief," Admiral Hawthorne's voice was carefully controlled, "Lieutenant Commander Blackwater was killed in action 7 years ago. I attended her memorial service personally." Sofia stepped toward the communication system, her voice carrying the professional bearing that had once made her one of the Navy's most respected officers. "Admiral Hawthorne, this is Ghost. Authentication code Whiskey 77 Delta Foxtrot 9. I believe we need to talk." The authentication code was known only to the highest levels of naval intelligence. Its use by someone who was supposed to be dead would have sent shockwaves through the Pentagon's secure communication networks. Another long silence followed before Admiral Hawthorne's voice returned, heavy with implications. "Stand by for immediate helicopter transport. I'm coming to you personally." Sterling, still slumped against the weapons rack, looked up with desperate hope. "Admiral Hawthorne will expose this fraud. She'll prove this woman is lying." Sofia's smile was cold and knowing. "Commander, Admiral Hawthorne was my commanding officer during Operation Silent Storm. She's the one who recommended me for the Navy Cross after I infiltrated the arms trafficking network that your family was part of." Brooks's live stream had reached over 100,000 viewers, with military personnel and intelligence analysts from around the world tuning in to watch events unfold. The comment stream was moving too fast to follow, filled with speculation about one of the most classified operations in recent naval history. Within 30 minutes, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors filled the air above the USS Defiance. Admiral Rebecca Steele Hawthorne was known throughout the Navy as one of the most competent and uncompromising officers ever to wear the uniform. Her personal arrival at what should have been a routine demonstration spoke to the extraordinary nature of the situation. Sofia stood at attention as Admiral Hawthorne entered the weapons bay, accompanied by a small security detail and intelligence officers. The Admiral was in her late 50s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had built her reputation on an ability to see through deception and get to the truth no matter how well hidden.
Hawthorne stopped 10 feet from Sofia, studying her with the intensity of someone trying to reconcile the impossible. 7 years ago, I watched Lieutenant Commander Sofia Blackwater's helicopter crash into the Pacific Ocean. Search and rescue found debris, but no survivors. Admiral, Sofia replied, maintaining perfect military bearing. That crash was staged. I survived because I discovered the assassination plot 12 hours before takeoff and substituted a remotely piloted aircraft for the one I was supposed to be flying. Hawthorne circled Sofia slowly, her trained eye taking in every detail. If you're really Sofia Blackwater, then you'll know details about Operation Silent Storm that were never committed to written record. Sofia's response was immediate and precise. Ma'am, the operation began when I infiltrated the Montenegro Arms Consortium, posing as a weapons buyer representing fictitious South American cartels. The breakthrough came when I discovered that Congressman Sterling was personally facilitating sales of advanced U.S. weapons systems to hostile nations. Hawthorne's expression remained neutral, but her eyes showed growing recognition. Continue. The weapons included modified Javelin missile systems, advanced communications equipment, and classified targeting software that could compromise our entire Pacific Fleet's operational security. The total value exceeded $800 million over 3 years. Several intelligence officers in Hawthorne's entourage exchanged significant glances. These details matched classified briefings they had received about one of the most damaging security breaches in recent naval history. Ma'am, Sofia continued, the conspiracy included 12 members of Congress, 6 Pentagon officials, and multiple defense contractors. When I attempted to report my findings, I discovered that several members of my own chain of command were involved. Hawthorne stepped closer, her voice dropping to a tone that carried across the silent weapons bay. Ghost, tell me about the scar.
Sofia immediately rolled up her left sleeve, revealing a distinctive scar running from wrist to elbow. Shrapnel from the IED in Kandahar, 2019. You were the one who insisted I receive the Purple Heart, even though the mission was classified. The recognition in Hawthorne's eyes was unmistakable. Jesus Christ, it really is you. The weapons bay erupted in whispers and gasps. Brooks's live stream chat exploded with activity as viewers realized they were witnessing one of the most significant moments in recent military history. Sterling struggled to his feet, his voice cracking with desperation. Admiral, this woman is clearly unstable. She's been posing as cleaning staff, making wild accusations against my family. Commander Sterling, Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through his protests like a blade. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Security, place him in custody pending investigation. You can't do this, Sterling shouted as security personnel moved toward him. My uncle is a congressman. My family has connections throughout. Your family, Sofia interrupted, is about to discover that treason carries consequences regardless of political connections. Hawthorne turned to address the entire crowd, her voice carrying the authority of Fleet Command. What you have witnessed here today is classified at the highest levels. Any unauthorized disclosure will result in court-martial and federal prosecution. She then focused on Sofia with an expression mixing professional respect and personal amazement. Ghost, I need to know everything. 7 years of investigation, 7 years of evidence gathering. What do you have? Sofia gestured toward the classified terminal still displaying the conspiracy documents. Admiral, I have enough evidence to dismantle the entire network. Bank records, recorded conversations, documented weapons transfers, and testimony from participants who thought they were dealing with a dead woman. Ma'am, Master Chief Jefferson interjected. Lieutenant Commander Blackwater has been operating under perfect cover for 7 years. The intelligence she's gathered could change everything. Hawthorne nodded slowly, the full implications beginning to sink in.
Ghost, you've been presumed dead for 7 years. Coming back from the dead is going to send shockwaves through every level of government and military command. Sofia's expression was determined and unwavering. Admiral, I've spent 7 years in exile while corrupt officials profited from selling American weapons to our enemies. I'm ready for those shockwaves. The Admiral looked around the weapons bay, taking in the crowd of personnel who had witnessed the most extraordinary security revelation in recent memory. Very well, Ghost. Let's finish what you started 7 years ago. Sofia Blackwater was officially back from the dead, and the conspiracy that had destroyed her life was about to face the full weight of American military justice.
Admiral Hawthorne activated the weapons bay's secure communication protocols, transforming the space into a classified briefing room. This area is now under intelligence lockdown. All personnel present are bound by national security protocols. Sofia moved to the classified terminal with the confidence of someone returning to familiar territory. Admiral, what I'm about to show you represents 7 years of deep cover investigation into the largest weapons trafficking conspiracy in U.S. military history. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing files that had been hidden in secure servers around the world. The main display screen filled with a complex organizational chart showing connections between military officials, congressional representatives, and foreign arms dealers. The conspiracy began in 2018. Sofia explained, her voice carrying the precision of a professional intelligence briefer. Congressman Robert Sterling, Commander Sterling's uncle, was approached by the Montenegro Arms Consortium with an offer to purchase advanced U.S. weapons systems. The screen displayed bank records showing massive payments flowing into accounts controlled by the Sterling family, numbers that made the watching personnel gasp, millions of dollars and what appeared to be systematic bribes. Hawthorne studied the financial data with growing anger. These payments coincide with congressional votes on military appropriations bills. Exactly, Admiral. Congressman Sterling used his position on the Armed Services Committee to ensure that specific weapon systems were approved for production, then facilitated their illegal sale to hostile nations. Sofia pulled up reports showing advanced American weapons appearing in the hands of terrorist organizations and enemy states. The weapons included Javelin anti-tank missiles, encrypted communication systems, drone technology, and most critically, the classified targeting software for our Aegis combat system. Master Chief Jefferson felt sick as the implications became clear. Ma'am, that targeting software could compromise our entire fleet's defensive capabilities. It already has, Chief, Sofia replied grimly. 3 separate naval incidents in the past 5 years can be traced directly to enemies having access to our combat algorithms. Admiral Hawthorne's face was stone as she processed the magnitude of the betrayal. How many American lives were lost because of this conspiracy? Sofia's voice carried the weight of 7 years of investigation and personal sacrifice. 43 confirmed deaths, Admiral. Sailors, Marines, and intelligence operatives who died because our enemies had advanced knowledge of American tactics and technology. The weapons bay fell silent, except for the hum of electronic equipment. Even Brooks had stopped his live stream commentary, overwhelmed by the scope of what was being revealed. Sterling, held by security personnel, made one last desperate attempt at denial. This is all fabricated evidence. My uncle is a patriot who has served this country for decades. Sofia turned to face him directly, her eyes holding no mercy. Commander, your uncle didn't just take bribes. He personally ordered the assassination of naval personnel who threatened to expose the conspiracy. She pulled up a new set of files, audio recordings, encrypted communications, and surveillance footage that painted a picture of systematic murder disguised as operational accidents. The helicopter crash that was supposed to kill me was preceded by 6 other accidents that eliminated investigators and whistleblowers.
Your family built their fortune on the blood of American service members. Admiral Hawthorne reviewed the evidence with the methodical precision of someone who had spent decades evaluating intelligence reports. Ghost, this is overwhelming. The scope of the conspiracy reaches into the Pentagon, Congress, and multiple defense contractors.
Admiral, I have documented evidence against 47 individuals in positions of significant authority. The network includes 3 senators, 12 representatives, 6 Pentagon officials, and 26 defense contractor executives. The implications were staggering. If Sofia's evidence was accurate, the scandal would reach the highest levels of American government and military leadership. Brooks, despite his shock, maintained enough presence of mind to continue recording. His live stream audience had grown to over 200,000 viewers, with major news networks beginning to pick up the feed. "Ma'am," Petty Officer Rodriguez asked quietly, "how did you survive for 7 years without being detected?" Sofia's smile held grim satisfaction. "I became invisible, Petty Officer. I took a job that made me background noise, a person so unremarkable that no one bothered to look twice. The perfect cover for gathering intelligence on the people who tried to kill me." She gestured around the weapons bay. "For 7 years, I've cleaned weapons handled by officers involved in the conspiracy. I've listened to conversations, photographed documents, and recorded evidence that will bring down everyone involved." Hawthorne activated her secure communication device. "I'm calling in a full FBI task force and military intelligence teams. This investigation is now a matter of national security." Sofia pulled up one final set of documents, a comprehensive list of weapons systems that had been compromised, foreign nations that had received classified technology, and ongoing threats to American security. "Admiral, the damage extends far beyond simple corruption. Our enemies now possess weapons technology that puts every American service member at risk. Entire operational strategies have been compromised." The weight of 7 years of hidden investigation was finally being revealed. Sofia had done more than survive her assassination attempt. She had built an airtight case against everyone involved in the conspiracy. Sterling's legs gave out as the full scope of his family's crimes became undeniable. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know the extent of what my uncle was doing." "Commander, ignorance isn't a defense when you've spent your career benefiting from blood money and abusing the authority it bought you." Admiral Hawthorne looked around the weapons bay at the personnel who had witnessed the most significant intelligence revelation in recent history. "This changes everything. The entire paradigm of how we conduct security investigations, protect whistleblowers, and root out corruption." Sofia stood at attention, her 7-year mission finally complete. "Admiral, I'm ready to provide full testimony and evidence to whatever investigative bodies you deem appropriate." "Ghost," Hawthorne replied with deep respect. "You've just handed us the tools to restore integrity to the entire military and congressional oversight system." The invisible cleaning lady had become the architect of the largest corruption investigation in American military history. Admiral Hawthorne surveyed the weapons bay, her mind processing the implications of Sofia's revelations. "Ghost, before we proceed with the formal investigation, I need to verify that your operational capabilities remain intact after 7 years of deep cover." Sofia understood immediately. "Admiral, you need to confirm that I'm still the operator you remember, not just someone with access to classified information." "Exactly. The intelligence community needs to know that Sofia Blackwater's skills are as sharp as her investigative work." Brooks's livestream audience had swelled to over 300,000 viewers, with military personnel and intelligence analysts from around the world watching what had become the most significant naval event in recent memory. Sofia moved to the advanced weapons display with the fluid grace of someone returning to their natural element.
What would you like me to demonstrate, Admiral? Hawthorne gestured toward a complex array of weapons systems and tactical equipment. Show me why they called you Ghost. Sofia began with the M110 sniper system that Sterling had originally chosen for her humiliation. But instead of basic handling, she performed a complete combat preparation sequence: scope calibration, wind reading from environmental cues, range estimation using landmarks visible through the weapons bay's windows. Target acquisition at 800 meters, she announced, settling into a shooting position that demonstrated perfect form. Compensation for crosswind at 12 knots, temperature differential affecting trajectory, and target movement patterns. Her movements were so precise that several experienced snipers in the watching crowd exchanged amazed glances. This wasn't someone who had memorized procedures. This was a master craftsman demonstrating her art. "Remarkable," Master Chief Jefferson whispered to Admiral Hawthorne. "I've never seen anyone maintain that level of precision after 7 years without formal training." But Sofia was just beginning. She transitioned to the M4 carbine system, performing tactical reloads, malfunction clearances, and movement patterns that showcased combat expertise developed through years of high-risk operations. "Urban combat drill," she announced, moving through the weapons bay as if it were a hostile environment. Her footwork was perfect, her weapon handling flawless, her situational awareness complete. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Sofia demonstrated skills that most special operations personnel would struggle to match. 7 years of hiding had not diminished her capabilities. If anything, her movements showed the refined precision of someone who had never stopped training. "Jesus," breathed Petty Officer Rodriguez. "She's moving like liquid death." Sofia approached the classified weapons cabinet and selected an advanced weapon system that most of the watching personnel had never seen before. "Admiral, permission to demonstrate proficiency with the XM-25 counter-defiled targeting system." "Granted, Ghost. Show us what you can do." What followed was a demonstration of tactical expertise that redefined everyone's understanding of what was possible. Sofia handled the advanced weapons system with the casual familiarity of someone who had helped develop its operational protocols. She performed target acquisition drills, environmental assessment procedures, and tactical employment scenarios that showcased not just individual skill, but strategic thinking at the highest levels. "Range to target, 1,200 meters, she announced, working through a complex targeting solution. Multiple obstacles requiring indirect fire, civilian consideration zones marked, optimal approach vector calculated. Admiral Hawthorne observed with professional amazement. "Ghost, you're not just maintaining your skills, you've improved them." Sofia completed the weapons demonstration and moved to a communications terminal, her fingers flying across controls that accessed some of the Navy's most secure networks. "Admiral, permission to demonstrate current intelligence on Sterling network activities." "Proceed."
Sofia pulled up real-time surveillance data showing financial transactions, communication intercepts, and movement patterns of individuals involved in the conspiracy. As of this morning, Congressman Sterling is attempting to transfer $47 million to offshore accounts. His associates are destroying documents and preparing to flee the country. The data was so current and detailed that it could only have come from active intelligence operations. Sofia hadn't just been hiding for 7 years, she had been conducting ongoing surveillance of the entire conspiracy network. "How?" Admiral Hawthorne asked in amazement. "How have you maintained this level of operational capability while living as a cleaning lady?" Sofia's smile held 7 years of careful planning. "Admiral, I never stopped being Sofia Blackwater. I just became very good at hiding it during business hours." She gestured around the weapons bay. "Every night for 7 years, I've trained in abandoned areas of the base. Every weekend, I've practiced with civilian weapons at private ranges. Every moment of free time has been dedicated to maintaining my skills and gathering intelligence." Master Chief Jefferson shook his head in wonder. "Ma'am, you've been conducting a 7-year covert operation right under our noses." "Chief, the best place to hide a ghost is in plain sight." Sofia moved to a tactical planning display, pulling up operational maps and strategic assessments. Admiral, I haven't just gathered evidence against the conspiracy, I've developed comprehensive plans for dismantling their entire network. The display showed detailed operational plans for simultaneous raids, asset seizures, and arrests that would effectively destroy the weapons trafficking organization in a single coordinated strike. This is military-grade operational planning, Admiral Hawthorne observed with growing respect. Ghost, you've essentially conducted a 7-year intelligence operation that rivals anything our official agencies have accomplished. Brooks's live stream chat was moving too fast to follow, filled with comments from military professionals who recognized they were witnessing operational excellence at the highest possible level. Sterling, still held by security, watched in horror as the full scope of Sofia's capabilities became clear. The woman he had tried to humiliate possessed skills that surpassed most of the Navy's elite operatives. This isn't possible. No one could maintain this level of capability while working as a cleaning lady. Sofia turned to face him directly. Commander, you underestimated me because you assumed that someone in a service position couldn't be a threat. That assumption just cost you everything. Admiral Hawthorne stepped forward with formal bearing. Ghost, on behalf of the United States Navy, I'm offering you immediate reinstatement at your previous rank, with promotion to full commander effective immediately. Sofia stood at attention, her 7-year exile finally ending. Admiral, I accept, with the understanding that my primary mission remains completing the destruction of this conspiracy. Understood, Commander Blackwater. Welcome back to active duty. The transformation was complete. Sofia, Ghost, Blackwater had emerged from 7 years of hiding, her skills sharper than ever, ready to finish the mission that had nearly cost her life.
Admiral Hawthorne activated her secure communication device, connecting to the Pentagon's Emergency Response Center. This is Admiral Hawthorne, authorization code Sierra Alpha 77. I need immediate implementation of Operation Clean Sweep. Sofia watched with satisfaction as 7 years of careful planning finally moved into execution phase. Admiral, the coordination needs to be simultaneous. If any member of the network receives warning, they'll activate destruction protocols for evidence and escape routes. Within minutes, the weapons bay filled with the sound of incoming helicopters. FBI agents, Naval Criminal Investigative Service personnel, and military intelligence teams were converging on Pearl Harbor for what would become the largest coordinated law enforcement operation in recent history. Commander Blackwater, Admiral Hawthorne announced formally, you are hereby authorized to lead the tactical coordination of all arrests and evidence seizures related to the Sterling conspiracy. Sofia moved to the command terminal, her fingers flying across controls as she coordinated with law enforcement agencies across multiple time zones. Teams Alpha through Delta, you are go for simultaneous execution, target acquisition in progress. Brooks's live stream had reached over 500,000 viewers, with major news networks scrambling to understand the breaking story. The comment stream included military personnel from around the world sharing their amazement at watching history unfold in real time. The first arrests began within the hour. Sofia's intelligence had provided exact locations, movement patterns, and security details for every target. The coordination was flawless, a testament to 7 years of meticulous preparation. Congressman Robert Sterling is in custody, came the first report over the secure channel. FBI teams found him attempting to destroy documents in his congressional office. We recovered over 3,000 pages of incriminating evidence. Sofia's expression showed grim satisfaction. Excellent. What about the offshore accounts? Treasury Department has frozen $47 million in illegal proceeds. The money trail leads to 12 different countries, but your financial intelligence was perfect. We got everything. Sterling, still held by security in the weapons bay, watched his uncle's arrest on the live news feed with growing horror. This can't be happening. My family has protected American interests for generations. Your family, Sofia replied coldly, has sold American weapons to our enemies for profit. The only interests you've protected are your own bank accounts.
Admiral Hawthorne coordinated with Pentagon officials as more arrests unfolded across the country. Ghost, your intelligence network is remarkable. How did you track all these individuals without official resources? Sofia's smile held 7 years of careful planning. Admiral, I used the same networks they thought they had compromised. Every communication they sent, every financial transaction they made, every meeting they attended, I was watching through systems they believed were secure. The tactical display showed arrests happening simultaneously in Washington, D.C., Virginia, California, and Nevada. Defense contractor executives, Pentagon officials, and congressional staff members were being taken into custody based on Sofia's detailed intelligence. Team Charlie reports successful seizure of Montegro Arms Consortium records. We found complete documentation of weapons transfers, including serial numbers of systems currently in enemy hands. Master Chief Jefferson watched the coordinated operation with professional amazement. Ma'am, this is the most comprehensive law enforcement action I've ever witnessed. Chief, 7 years of preparation makes for efficient execution. The evidence seizures were equally impressive. Sofia's intelligence had identified safe houses, storage facilities, and data centers used by the conspiracy. Teams were recovering documents, computer systems, and physical evidence that would support prosecutions for decades. Admiral, Sofia announced, we need to address the compromised weapons systems immediately. Every piece of technology sold to hostile nations represents an ongoing threat to American personnel. Hawthorne nodded grimly. What's your recommendation, Commander? Immediate implementation of countermeasures for all compromised systems. I've developed software patches, tactical modifications, and operational changes that will neutralize the advantages our enemies gained. Sofia pulled up technical specifications showing how American weapons could be modified to counter the intelligence that had been sold to foreign adversaries. Her work was comprehensive, addressing every system that had been compromised. This is military engineering at the highest level, observed one of the intelligence officers. Commander, how did you develop these countermeasures without official resources? I've had 7 years to think about how to fix what they broke. Every night after cleaning their weapons, I worked on solutions to protect American lives.
The arrest reports continued flooding in. Sofia's network had identified not just the primary conspirators, but their entire support structure. Accountants, lawyers, logistics coordinators, and security personnel were all being taken into custody. 43 arrests confirmed, Admiral Hawthorne announced. 4 remaining targets are attempting to flee the country, but international coordination is in place. Sofia accessed real-time tracking data showing the location of the fleeing conspirators. Admiral, I have their exact positions. 2 are attempting to reach private aircraft, 1 is heading for a yacht, and the 4th is trying to cross into Mexico by vehicle. Outstanding, Commander. Federal agents are moving to intercept. Sterling made one final desperate plea. Please, I had nothing to do with the weapon sales. I just followed orders from my uncle. Sofia turned to face him with an expression that held no mercy. Commander, you've spent 7 years abusing authority you gained through corruption. You've humiliated good sailors, undermined military discipline, and perpetuated the same toxic culture that enabled this conspiracy. She gestured toward the ongoing arrests displayed on the news feeds. Your ignorance of your family's crimes doesn't excuse your personal failures as an officer. Admiral Hawthorne approached Sterling with formal bearing. Vincent Sterling, you are hereby stripped of rank and authority. You will face court-martial for conduct unbecoming an officer, abuse of authority, and association with treasonous activities. As Sterling was led away in handcuffs, Brooks captured the moment for his live-stream audience. The man who had tried to humiliate a cleaning lady was now facing the destruction of everything he had believed about himself and his family. Team Delta reports final arrest completed, came the last report. All primary targets are in custody. The Sterling conspiracy network has been completely dismantled. Sofia stood in the weapons bay where her transformation had begun, surrounded by the evidence of justice finally served. 7 years of patience, preparation, and sacrifice had culminated in the complete destruction of the conspiracy that had nearly killed her. Admiral, she said quietly, the mission is complete.
3 weeks later, the full scope of the Sterling conspiracy dominated headlines around the world. The arrests had triggered the largest congressional ethics investigation in American history, with 27 members of Congress under federal indictment and the entire military procurement system undergoing comprehensive reform. Sofia sat in a Pentagon briefing room addressing a joint session of congressional investigators, FBI officials, and military leadership. Her testimony was being broadcast live to secure facilities around the world, marking the official end of her 7-year exile. The weapons trafficking network generated over $800 million in illegal profits, Sofia testified, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had documented every detail. These funds were used to corrupt military procurement decisions, compromise operational security, and ultimately cost 43 American lives. Senator Patricia Williams, chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, leaned forward with obvious respect. Commander Blackwater, your investigation represents the most comprehensive intelligence operation ever conducted by a single individual. How did you maintain operational security for 7 years? Sofia's response was measured and professional. Senator, I became invisible by embracing genuine invisibility. The best cover for an intelligence operative is a job so mundane that no one questions your presence anywhere on a military installation. The room filled with murmurs of amazement. Sofia's methodology had revolutionized thinking about deep cover operations and long-term intelligence gathering. The evidence you've provided, continued Senator Williams, has exposed corruption reaching the highest levels of government and military leadership. What's your assessment of the damage to national security? Sofia activated a presentation showing the global impact of the conspiracy. Senator, compromised weapons systems are currently in the hands of hostile nations in 3 different theaters. Our enemies possess targeting algorithms, communication protocols, and tactical software that puts every American service member at risk. Admiral Hawthorne, now leading the Pentagon's corruption task force, added context to Sofia's testimony. Commander Blackwater has also developed comprehensive countermeasures that will restore our tactical advantages. Her work extends far beyond investigation. She's provided solutions to every problem the conspiracy created. The hearings revealed details that shocked even experienced intelligence professionals. Sofia had infiltrated bank networks, intercepted communications, and tracked financial transactions across multiple countries, all while maintaining her cover as a cleaning lady. The Montenegro Arms Consortium believed they were dealing with deceased personnel. This allowed me to observe their operations without triggering security protocols designed to detect active intelligence threats. Brooks, now working as a military correspondent covering the hearings, reflected on how his live stream had sparked the entire revelation. I thought I was filming a cruel joke. Instead, I documented the moment when 7 years of patient investigation finally came to light. His original video had been viewed over 50 million times, becoming a symbol of how truth could emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. The legal proceedings moved with unprecedented speed. Congressman Robert Sterling pled guilty to 18 federal charges, including treason, conspiracy, and money laundering. His cooperation provided additional evidence that expanded the investigation to defense contractors and foreign arms dealers. Your Honor, my client was motivated by financial gain, but he never intended to harm American service members. Sofia, present for the sentencing hearing, stood to address the court. Your Honor, Congressman Sterling's conspiracy directly caused the deaths of 43 American military personnel. His intent is irrelevant when measured against the consequences of his actions. The judge sentenced Sterling to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Similar sentences followed for the other primary conspirators, effectively dismantling the entire network. Vincent Sterling, the former commander who had tried to humiliate Sofia, received a dishonorable discharge and 15 years in military prison. His court-martial became a case study in how privilege and corruption could destroy military leadership.
The defendant, the military judge declared, used authority gained through family corruption to abuse subordinates and undermine military discipline. His conduct represents everything wrong with nepotism in military advancement. Sofia watched from the gallery as Sterling was led away in shackles, his naval career and family legacy destroyed by his own actions and his family's crimes. The broader impact extended far beyond individual prosecutions. Congress passed the Blackwater Military Accountability Act, establishing new protections for military whistleblowers and reforming the weapons procurement process.
This legislation, announced Speaker of the House Maria Rodriguez, ensures that no service member will ever again face the choice between exposing corruption and preserving their career. Sofia was promoted to captain and given command of the Navy's new Anti-Corruption Task Force, a position created specifically to prevent future conspiracies from taking root in military leadership. Her first briefing to the task force addressed lessons learned from 7 years of investigation. Corruption thrives in environments where authority goes unquestioned and oversight is viewed as disloyalty. Our mission is to ensure that service members can report misconduct without fear of retaliation. The weapon systems compromised by the conspiracy were systematically upgraded using Sofia's countermeasures. Software patches, tactical modifications, and operational changes neutralized the advantages that hostile nations had gained through illegal purchases. Every compromised system has been addressed, Sofia reported to the Pentagon leadership. Our enemies no longer possess technological advantages gained through the Sterling conspiracy. International cooperation led to the recovery of most weapons that had been illegally sold. Countries that had unknowingly purchased stolen American technology returned the systems in exchange for legitimate defense partnerships. Master Chief Jefferson, now promoted to Senior Chief, reflected on the transformation he had witnessed. I knew Carmen was special, but I never imagined she was conducting the most important intelligence operation in recent military history. The USS Defiance weapons bay, where Sofia's revelation had occurred, was designated as a historical site, with a plaque reading, "Here, Commander Sofia Ghost Blackwater emerged from 7 years of exile to expose the largest military corruption conspiracy in American history." Sofia's story became required reading at military academies, intelligence schools, and leadership training programs. Her methods revolutionized thinking about long-term investigation, operational security, and the power of patient intelligence gathering. The lesson, Sofia told graduating Naval Academy midshipmen, is that excellence and truth will eventually prevail, even against overwhelming opposition. Sometimes, the most powerful response to injustice is to become so competent at your mission that your enemies cannot ignore your success. The conspiracy that had tried to destroy Sofia Blackwater had instead created one of the most effective intelligence operatives in American history. Her 7-year exile had ended with complete vindication and a legacy that would protect American service members for generations.
2 years after her dramatic revelation in the USS Defiance weapons bay, Captain Sofia Ghost Blackwater stood on the deck of the newly commissioned USS Vigilance, the first ship built entirely under the reformed procurement system she had helped create. The morning sun painted Pearl Harbor in golden light, the same harbor where she had spent 7 years hiding in plain sight. Her anti-corruption task force had processed over 400 cases of military misconduct, achieving justice for personnel who had faced discrimination, retaliation, or wrongful accusations. The unit had become a model for integrity enforcement that other nations were adopting for their own military systems. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos approached with the morning briefing. "We have 3 new cases that require your review. 2 potential whistleblower situations, and 1 suspected procurement fraud."
Sofia reviewed the files with the same meticulous attention to detail that had characterized her 7-year investigation. Lieutenant Commander, what's your assessment of the whistleblower cases? Both appear legitimate, ma'am. Junior officers reporting safety violations that their commands are trying to suppress. Classic retaliation scenarios. Assign our best investigators immediately. I want those officers protected and their concerns addressed within 72 hours. Sofia had learned that the best way to prevent corruption was to respond to early warnings with overwhelming support for those brave enough to speak truth to power. Her assistant knocked and entered. Captain, your 1400 appointment is here. Chief Petty Officer Anderson requesting assistance with a discrimination case. Send him in, please. Chief Anderson entered nervously, clearly uncomfortable with approaching such high-ranking leadership. He was a young African-American sailor whose career had been stalled by a commanding officer who resented his rapid advancement. Chief, please sit, Sofia said warmly, remembering her own feelings of desperation 7 years earlier. I've reviewed your case. The evidence clearly shows systematic discrimination by your commanding officer who has a documented pattern of blocking promotions for minority personnel. Ma'am, I just want to serve my country without having to prove myself twice as hard as everyone else. You shouldn't have to, Chief. Your commanding officer has been relieved of duty and faces court-martial. You're being transferred to a new command with a commander who values competence over demographics. Anderson's eyes filled with tears of relief. Thank you, ma'am. I heard about what happened to you, how you survived years of injustice. You give people like me hope. Chief, you gave yourself hope by refusing to accept discrimination as normal. I just made sure the system worked the way it should have from the beginning. After Anderson left, Sofia reviewed the latest statistics from her task force operations. Successful prosecutions had increased by 340%, while reports of discrimination and retaliation had decreased by 60%. The message was clear. Corruption and abuse would face swift, certain consequences. Brooks, now a respected military journalist, arrived for his scheduled interview about the 2nd anniversary of the USS Defiance incident. Captain, how do you reflect on the journey from Carmen Delgado to your current position? Sofia considered the question carefully. Brooks, I learned that sometimes the best way to fight injustice is to become excellent at something your enemies never expected you to master. Invisibility can be a weapon when used correctly. Your story has inspired reforms throughout the military justice system. What's your message for service members who feel powerless against corruption? Document everything. Build your case methodically. And remember that excellence is the ultimate argument against those who question your right to succeed.
That evening, Sofia returned to her quarters and opened a secure file containing letters from service members around the world. Thousands of people had written to share their own stories of overcoming discrimination, exposing corruption, or simply finding inspiration in her example. One letter particularly moved her. Captain Blackwater, I'm a young Latina officer facing the same kind of discrimination you overcame. Your story taught me that I don't have to accept being treated as less than I am. I'm building my own case, gathering my own evidence, and refusing to be invisible unless it serves my mission. Thank you for showing us that justice delayed is not always justice denied. Sofia walked to her window overlooking Pearl Harbor, where lights from ships reflected on the dark water. Somewhere out there, other people were fighting their own battles against corruption and injustice, drawing strength from the knowledge that truth and excellence could ultimately prevail. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Admiral Hawthorne. Ghost, intelligence indicates potential weapons trafficking involving South American cartels. Your task force has been requested for investigation. Interested? Sofia smiled, feeling the familiar excitement of a new mission. Admiral, when do we start? Briefing at 0600. Welcome back to the field, Commander.
Sofia had spent 7 years in exile, building a case that would change military justice forever. But her story wasn't ending. It was evolving into something larger, a continuing mission to ensure that corruption could never again destroy lives or compromise national security. She thought about Carmen Delgado, the invisible cleaning lady who had been her cover for 7 years. That woman had served her purpose, gathering intelligence and building evidence while the world assumed she was powerless. But Carmen had always been a role she was playing. The real Sofia Blackwater, the intelligence operative, the decorated officer, the woman who refused to surrender her identity to those who tried to destroy her, had never gone anywhere. She had simply been waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows and reclaim everything that belonged to her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conspiracies to uncover, new injustices to address. But tonight, Sofia stood in her quarters as the woman she had always been, a guardian of truth, a protector of justice, and living proof that sometimes the people others underestimate are exactly the people who will change the world. The invisible woman was invisible no more. Sofia, Ghost Blackwater, had returned to the light, and she was never going back to the shadows. Some ghosts, she had learned, don't haunt the past. They shape the future. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.